duration is how long it lasts. So the length of a note, the length of a tone. All right. So for duration, you've got to start talking about how rhythm works. All right. So when you're looking at music, if you've ever looked at music, can I erase parts of this over here? Going once, going twice. So when you're looking at written music, at the beginning you'll see something like this. There'll be a bunch of lines. There'll be some kind of weird shape, and you might have some of those symbols, and then you'll have some numbers. All right, that gives you your time signature. All right, so those numbers are your time, and that's how you subdivide a beat. So the beat is a regular, recurrent pattern. It's a pulsation. All right, it divides music into equal units of time. All right, so and when you organize these beats, you get it metered. All right, and there are different types of meter, and that's what the numbers kind of correspond to. All right, so you listen to music, listen to a lot of songs on the radio. A lot of songs on the radio are in either duple or quadruple meter. All right, meaning you can count it either 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 90% of music on the radio because that's what the ear likes to hear, right? Okay? There's the third type. Anybody want to take a guess what goes between these two?
Triple.
Triple. All right? All right? So this would be 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Be a waltz. You've ever heard of waltz? All right. So there are some songs that are written in triple meter, but these are your three main types: duple, triple, quadruple, which means 2, 3, and 4. And it's how the measures are subdivided. So just given what you're looking at here, what would you say meter this is in?
Duple.
Quadruple. All right, because it's 4, 4. So quadruple means 4. All right. So that tells you how it's subdivided. All right. The numbers mean specific things for the top number and the bottom number, and the easiest is top number is how many. Bottom number is what kind. That's the easiest way to remember it. But yeah. All right. What does that mean? Here's where we get into the math portion of the thing. All right? So, you people that love math, here's your fun time. All right? The basic unit of a measure is considered 4. 4, 4 is the most common time, so much so that instead of writing 4 over 4 like that, you can put a C, which means common time. All right? 4, 4 is the most common time. All right. So 4 beats per measure. All right. Measure being a unit. Think of it like words. All right. So word space, word space. So every measure has 4 beats in it. That brings us to what's called a whole note. All right. So a whole note, it will just look like a circle. So if you see it on music, it will just be a circle. It is worth 4 beats. That's why it's a whole note. It's an entire measure, a whole measure. If we split that up, it can be split into half notes. Half is half of a whole. All right? So it takes 2 of those to fill up a measure. So if you had something in 4/4 with bar lines, you could put 2 of those. That would be 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? With those naming conventions, what's half of a half? Quarter. I'm not going to draw this whole tree out, so Draw with stems up, you'll also see them like stems down, so that could be a note, that could be a note, stuff like that. But quarter notes, so it takes 4 of those. So we take the same idea, fill these in. So now you have a beat on every you have a note on every beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's half of a quarter? 8. So it's stem and then a little flag. All right. Same thing if it's downward stem and the flag is always on the right side of the stem. All right. That would be 8 notes. That means you're playing right. So if you're going 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Subdividing even further. Half of an eighth is a 16. From this point, you're just adding flags. All right. Same thing they say on the right side. So you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. 16 notes. There's 4 of those in one beat. All right. And you can keep going. 16, 32nd, 64th, 128th, 256. Keep going. And all you're doing at that point is adding flags. All right? It exists. Contemporary music's weird. All right? So, 16th is like the basis that you really need to know. Some music uses 32nd, but typically 16th's about the smallest that you have to worry about in most early music. Like early as in beginner level, not like EK. So that's really all you have to go down to. It does keep splitting, but all right. So that's how sound works. Those dots go on this line. The line corresponds to pitches. So the higher up on a line it is, the higher the pitch is. Lower it is, and you can even keep going and adding extra lines basically if you want to get lower or higher. That determines your pitch. Alright? The type of note, so the shape is the duration. Alright? So these 4 are on the same line. So they're all the same pitch. They're the same shape, so they're all the same duration. We could do this, so it's the same pitch, different duration. We could come up here. Now these 2 are the same duration as these, but they're different pitches. Alright? That's how you read music. Alright? The gist of it. Alright? Questions about that? Yes?
I have a dumb question here. Why are some of them upside down?
So that's a rule on how music is written, because if you had lines here, which is the base of music, and you kept having them pointed one direction, then you would have them like way up there. So if you hit the midpoint, you want the stems aimed at the midpoint. So if it's above the middle line, then it'll go down. If it's below the middle line, it goes up. If it's on the middle line, it just kind of fits the form of whatever's around it. All right? So you want it aimed inward. Any other questions? You will see it if you're reading choir music, SATB, and they have the sopranos and altos sharing a line. You will actually see it break this rule, because you'll have a line here, and you'll have the soprano alto line. The soprano note will be up here with the stem going upward, so you know it's a soprano note. The stem going downward, so you know it's the alto note. So if they do cross, like I was talking about, where the soprano goes under the alto, it will look like this. So alto note up here with the stem going down, soprano note under it, stem going up. So you know which one's soprano, which one's alto. So that's when it'll break the rule, or tenor bass can share a line too. They follow the same rule. That's how you can tell the difference. But if you're just reading for single instrument or single voice, they'll shoot for the middle line. all right? Other questions on that? So if you're dealing with duration, you also have to deal with what's between notes. Because music isn't just a solid wall of sound. There's silence between notes. What do we call those silences in music? Rests. And rests correspond to this notation system. All right? So you have what's a whole rest, which you kind of have to draw this whole thing out because it's attached to one of these lines. So a whole rest is on the second line dropping down. All right? That's a whole rest. All right? Get down to a half rest, kind of the same. You got to have the system because it's attached to a line. It's on the middle line going upwards. All right? The rest of them aren't necessarily attached to a line. You have a quarter rest, which is the weirdest looking one, and I'm going to attempt to draw it. So it's got this weird little thick line here, and then this offshoot. Something like that. It's funky looking. All right. Most of the time, if I'm just drawing a rest, I'll just kind of do that. All right. Quarter rest. Eighth rest and below follow the same convention. You have a dot with a flag. Kind of looks like a 7. That's an eighth, 16th. You do that, add an extra dot. Anything below that, you're just adding dots and flags. All right, tinier, tinier. So that's a rest. So if you were alternating note, rest, note, rest, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, you'd be going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? So that's how we denote silences. All right? There's no pitch, it just means don't play. All right? But they follow the same thing, so a half note plus a half rest is a full measure. All right? They still take up time. Questions on that one? Yes?
I was gonna say, there's one more thing you can add to it, is the brief note, which.
Oh yeah, there's a breve note that happens sometimes. That's technically 2 whole notes put together. If you really want to, it looks like a TIE fighter. So it's called a breve, but it's 2 of these put together. You don't see it much, but they do exist. Other thing is there's dots that you can add, which adds half a beat, but that's kind of getting a little too far into the technical side of things. But this is the basic rhythm studies, all right? So that's how we subdivide music. That tells you how they work within a piece. How do you know how fast to go?
Rhythm.
Rhythm, tempo, all right? So BPM, beats per minute, all right? So the tempo is the speed. It's the speed of the beat of the music, all right? You can have a weird little machine. You have them on your phone now, they're apps. But anybody seen those old mechanisms? It's just a weight and a little ticker. It's a metronome. It's got a little weight on top that you can slide up and down, and it will change the speed of the tick. All right, based on the weight. And that just ticks and keeps your tempo. You used to have to wind them, now they've got apps on your phone that you just hit and then do it for you. Much like dynamics, we have a lot of words that we use that are mainly Italian. All right, you got words like largo, which means slow or large. All right, allegro, which is quick. Presto, which means really fast. All right, then you can change tempo in the middle of a song. You can either speed up or slow down. If you're speeding up, it's called accelerando, like accelerate. It's the same derivative word. All right, or retardando means slow down. All right. So you can speed up and slow down the same way that you can gradually increase or decrease your dynamics. Right? any questions on duration? It's a lot that goes into duration when you're looking at it, but duration in and of itself is just, how long does the note last? Alright? So we touched on this a little bit. For music notation, we hit the notes and what they do. If you're looking at a staff, to correspond to these note names, there's a nice report over here. We'll just use it. Alright, let's make that bigger so you can see it. Alright, so if you're looking at the 5 lines of music, there's one thing you gotta know to know where the pitches are, where the letter names are. And that's your clef sign. Alright? Different instruments use different clefs. The 2 main ones that are used today are this one, which is the treble clef. And this one, which is the bass clef. Alright? So you can kind of guess what instrument uses what based on how low they are. Not a fully foolproof statement, but sopranos and altos use a treble clef. Tenors can use either. Instruments, flute, clarinet, the saxophone family, oboe, English horn, trumpet. A bunch of those higher ones use this. Tuba, trombone, euphonium, bassoon. The lower ones use this, or a bass singer. Alright? And the lines and spaces correspond to the note names. Alright? And it's different depending on which one you're looking at. If you're looking at the treble clef, the bottom line is an E. Then the space above that is F, G, A, B, C, D, another E, and then an F. Spell space. If you look at the spaces, most people say every good boy does fine for the lines.
It's like the color treble clef, the G clef, because it goes
Yeah.
across the line 4 times.
Yeah, if you are going by that, and calling that, it is a treble clef, but it is also a G clef, because it kind of circles this G line here. Same way with this one, it's called an F clef, because this dot and these 2 dots circle the F line. So that's F, G, and A, and backwards you have E, D, C, B, A, and D. Alright? So no names on that. And you can actually extend it. You always have those 5, but you have what's called ledger lines. Alright? So you draw a note down here, you know that note is in the space. Alright? Well, things with a wide pitch range can be above or below that, or like if you play a flute, they're always got ledger lines. You're adding a line above or below. So you would just count up F, the space here is a G, so the line there is an A. Alright? So you could put a B here. You could add 2 lines, so that's a C. Same goes backwards, so E, below the line is a D. And you have a C. Below that is a D, and so on. Alright? So that's how you extend the range of things. Alright? So that's the note names and how they correspond to a piano. Granted, there are specific points on a piano. So this C is a specific C on the piano. This C is the next C down. They cross over. This is the next C down. Alright? So they correspond to specific C's and A's and B's and things like that. Alright? So combining all that, you get where they are on the staff, for what pitch they are, the shape of the note themselves for the duration, and then when we start talking about key, just key, you're talking about a tonal center. Alright? So some music sounds like other songs. You play them next to each other, they sound like they're in the same key. Some music are very much not. Alright? So, this is how you get melodies and things. You start talking about key and key signature. Key signature uses these sharps and flats to tell you the general center of the piece. Alright? And that will come between your clef sign, so you'll have whatever clef it is, so you know what pitch range you're talking about. You'll have a key, which will be a set of sharps or flats, not both. And then you'll have a time. Alright? And that's at the start of every piece. Now, you could look at music and it might just have this and then time. That in and of itself is a key, because that will be C major, which means if you're looking at a piano, you're only using white notes. Alright? No sharp, no flats. So that's how we get to melody. Alright? So, melody has its own range between the lowest and highest notes. Sing along with it. You know. That's why if you've ever heard somebody struggle through the start thing there, because the range of that piece is horrible. Alright? So, melodies can be broken up like words can, like sentence structure. There are phrases. Alright? So, when you're singing, you want to try and break those up as they flow. And even if you're not singing it, there are melodic phrases for instrumental music. Alright? So, you want to make it flow together. It's the difference between talking, you know, the boy ran away, versus the boy ran away. Alright? You don't want to sound like Captain Kirk while you're playing the trumpet. Alright? Then you can repeat these. A repetition, a sequence, is a repetition of a pattern. Alright? Lower or higher. So, if you had Happy Birthday is a very simplistic example of sequence. Alright? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Same phrase, different pitches. It's kind of a sequence, right? And then you get into word painting, and we'll talk about that when we hit the Renaissance, because that's what all that was about. Alright? So melody is the line itself. When you're singing along with the radio, you're trying to sing the melody. Alright? Contrast that with harmony. What's harmony? Sort of background mixed in. So it's the way chords are constructed. So you hear background singers singing along with the song. Probably harmony. You hear multiple voices on different pitches. It's harmony. When you add a guitar in, it's technically providing harmonic accompaniment, right? So this can be good sounding. If it sounds good and pleasing, it's consonance. But if it doesn't sound so good, if it sounds like it clashes, it is dissonance. Alright? So, most radio music, it's nothing against radio music, it's just what it sounds like. Most radio music is written with consonants in mind, because nobody's gonna listen to music if it's a lot of dissonances. They might throw one or two here in for flavor, but for the most part, you listen to radio, it's all consonants, because the harmonies fit well with the melodies. All the instruments are playing pleasing chords, because that's what gets radio play, rather than weird, off-putting sounds, right? So, speaking of chords, what is a chord? Any guitar players or multi-note instruments? How many? Three. Yeah. Doesn't have to be 1, 3, 5. That is a typical chord, but it can be any 3 notes or more played together. Alright? So a combination of 3 or more tones sounded at once. This could be on one instrument, guitar. Piano can play chords by themselves. Or you could have a group of instruments. You could have an entire band playing different pitches and they're forming their own chord, all right? So there are many types of chords, which is a little too far in depth to get, but the simplest is 3 notes, 3 different notes. So you have like a C, G, and E, or an F sharp, a B, and an A flat, something like that. So 3 different pitches is the simplest chord. It's called a triad. All right, 3 tri, so triad. Just put it right here. T-R-I-A-D. And that's if you play them together. Now you can play them as a broken chord, rhythmically, or instead of all of them at once, you're like on dum 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 dum. That's called a, anybody? Arpeggio. Anybody seen Aristocats? The Disney movie with the cat. Tiny woman starts singing about scales and arpeggios. What he's doing while he's singing that. Dum 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 dum. Those are arpeggios. Alright? Like I said, those all relate to the key. Alright? It's the central tone, it's the central scale, it's the central chord. You know your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Anybody mainly familiar with that? Seen Sound of Music. Alright? Don't have to have seen Sound of Music to know do, a deer, a female deer, right? But that's what that's centered around. Your do is your key center. So do can move depending on the key. It's all about major scales and whole or half steps. Whole step being skipping a note, half step being going to the next note. Your patterns, your sharps or flats, which I said is your key signature. Alright? And then you can change keys within a piece, right? Changing keys would be referred to as modulation. Modulation. All right. Any questions on keys and melodies and harmonies and how everything goes together? Yes?
Can you repeat what modulation was?
So modulation is where you shift keys in the middle of a piece. Some songs do that. A lot of, yes, there's been a bunch of country songs that do it where they'll go through a couple of verses and choruses, and then at the end you can hear the pitch shift upward. That's a modulation. It's modulating upwards into a new key or a new tone center. All right? So a lot of them use it for like, oh, this is an uplifting song. So at the end, we're literally lifting the key upward to give that feel. All right? Any other questions about key or melodies? All right. So when you put all of this together, when you put all of these pieces together, you get a piece of music. And it creates texture. All right? There are different types of textures, and we'll touch more in depth on them when we get to their main eras. But there are 3 main types of textures. All right? Now I am out. All right. Ha-ha. As long as I don't kill it. There we go. You have monophonic, polyphonic, and homophonic. All right? So, when you're talking about the 3 basic textures of music, it all comes down to what are you hearing when it comes to all of this and key and things like that. All right? Homophonic means there is a melody line. If you're singing by yourself, that's monophonic music. alright? Monophonic can be a group of people, but they all have to be playing or singing the same thing, alright? It's not a choir singing multiple parts, it would be an entire room attempting to sing happy birthday to somebody. Monophonic, alright? Granted, if you've ever heard a room try and sing happy birthday, it's all but one single line, alright? But that's what monophonic is, alright? Polyphonic would be two or more melodic lines of equal interest, alright? So, not choral singing harmonies with each other, like if you're trying to sing happy birthday and somebody's singing like an interval down and making it sound good. That's not polyphonic. Polyphonic would be, easy way to say it would be if somebody's singing row, row, row your boat while somebody else is singing Mary Had a Little Lamb in the same key and they're overlapping well. It's weird to think about, but it's two differing melodic lines happening simultaneously, usually fitting together, alright? That's polyphonic, and you can use imitation for that. For example, a round is a type of polyphonic music. A round being a type of imitation. So if anybody's ever heard or sang that, where it's like one side of the room, row, row, row your boat, and row, row, row your boat, and row, row. That's imitation, all right? And that's a type of polyphonic because everybody's in a different spot. You're just overlapping them at different times, all right? So imitation and counterpoint are two big things. And counterpoint's just when you combine them together to make a whole, all right? Homophonic is most radio music. It's a main melody line accompanied by chords, all right? So choral works are homophonic because one voice, a lot of times a soprano, but it doesn't have to be, one of the voices is singing the main melody line, everybody else is singing with them, but on different pitches. Barbershop quartets can be doing that if they're all singing together, all right? That's homophonic, all right? So, a lead singer with guitar, a lead singer with an entire band behind them, a solo violin with an orchestra accompaniment. Those are all homophonic, all right? And well, like I said, we'll get a little more in-depth into those once we reach the era where they became prominent. All right? Not too much more, all right? Up next is form, all right? It's also led into form. So it's how you organize all of these elements together, repetition, contrasting each other, how you make varieties. And for now, just know that there are early on there were two main forms. You had binary and ternary. Alright? When you're analyzing music, you're looking at, think about verses and choruses of pop music, right? You have verse, you have chorus, you have verse, you have chorus. You can analyze music about the same way. You have an A section, then you have a B section, all right? Binary is just that. You have one section that's an A section, then you have one section that's a B section. These could be as long or as short as you want to, it's just a repetition of the same idea. So binary could end up being AA, BB. Or you could keep, so you play your A section, you play your A section again, play your B section, B section again. Ternary does that, then goes back to the A. So ternary is A, B, A, right? So verse, chorus, verse, right? So you have one section, a different section, the first section, all right? Questions on that? That's the earliest stuff, but there's a lot more forms that pop up throughout the years. Questions on that part? Speaking of years, last little bit that we'll cover. For the musical styles, and the rest of the chapters are separated into their musical eras. All right? So we're gonna start, we need to know these years, the year ranges are important. Alright, the first one is the Middle Ages. So part 2 covers the Middle Ages and actually goes on into the Renaissance. So the Middle Ages are the years of 450 to 1450. Alright? Then after that, you got the Renaissance. Which is also in part 2, which picks up where that leaves off, so 1450 to 1600. After that is Baroque. Alright? 1600 to 1750. Classical. Because in this class, it's kind of confusing, because most people, when they hear the word classical, they think any old music, right? Basically anything before like the 1920s that's like written for horns. That's classical music. But classical is its own era, specifically 1750 to 1820. Then you've got the Romantic era, which is 1820 to 1900, and then the 20th century, which has its own form as things like just explode outward into a bunch of different styles. All right, so the 20th century is its own chapter. All right, so those are all the years that you need to know, and then know 1900 and up is the 20th century, obviously. There's a lot that happened up to 1945, and a lot more that's happened since 1945 in the 20th century. But we will hit all these. Part 2 is the Middle Ages.